Have you ever noticed something strange about the way people age? We all celebrate the 80th birthday like it's the top of the mountain. But if you quietly look around, you start to see a pattern that almost nobody talks about. A huge number of people who make it into their early 80s never make it to 90. In many countries, only about 1 out of 3 people who reach 80 are still alive at 90. And in some places the number is closer to 1 out of 5. That means most people who make it to this victory lap decade never get to see the next finish line. Why? Doctors will mention things like natural causes or old age, but those phrases don't actually explain anything. They sound gentle, but they hide the real story. Because behind the statistics are 6 powerful forces silently working against people after about age 81. These forces don't show up clearly on lab tests. They're rarely written on a death certificate. Yet they quietly push thousands of older adults off track every single year. In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on those 6 hidden causes that steal the years between 80 and 90 from so many people. You'll see how a tiny shift in routine, a single fall, or one extra pill in the medicine cabinet can start a chain reaction that almost nobody recognizes until it's too late. And more importantly, you'll see what can be done about it. If you have a parent, a grandparent, or you're planning your own long life, this might be one of the most important videos you ever watch. Because once you understand what's really happening after 81, you can start quietly changing the story, sometimes with small, simple moves that doctors rarely talk about. You'll also start to recognize warning signs that most families miss until they look back and say, "That was the moment everything started to change." Let's begin with the first silent killer of life after 81. Not disease, not injury, but something far more invisible. The first hidden cause is the slow loss of purpose. For most of life, purpose feels automatic. You get up for school, for work, for your kids, for your goals. There's always something pulling you forward. But in the 70s, and especially after 80, those anchors start to disappear. Retirement is no longer new. The big projects are finished. Friends and siblings begin to pass away. Kids are grown, busy, and often far away. The calendar that used to be full of meetings, errands, and invitations can go blank almost overnight. At first, many older adults say they're enjoying the peace and quiet. But slowly, that quiet starts to feel like emptiness. Days lose their shape. You wake up and there's nowhere you absolutely have to be. No one is truly counting on you. That might sound relaxing, but for the human body and brain, it's actually dangerous. Researchers have found that people with a strong sense of purpose live longer, have lower risk of heart disease, and even develop less dementia. In one large study, older adults who felt their life still had direction were significantly less likely to die over the next few years than those who felt they were just drifting. Another recent study suggested that having a clear sense of purpose could lower the risk of serious memory problems by almost a third. That's not just nice to have. That's survival level important. To see how this plays out in real life, imagine a man named Robert. He's 82. For decades, he was the guy at his job, the one people called for advice, the one who trained the new hires. When he retired, he enjoyed a few years of travel and hobbies. But by 81, the travel slowed down, his closest friend moved away, and the volunteer work he used to do stopped during a tough winter. Little by little, his reasons to get up early disappeared. At first, nothing dramatic happened. He just stayed in bed a bit longer. Breakfast turned into coffee and a cookie. Instead of walking to the park, he spent more time in front of the TV. He told his family he was just taking it easy. But inside, something else was happening. His brain, no longer pushed by deadlines or responsibilities, started to coast. His muscles weakened from long stretches of sitting. His mood dipped, and small health problems began to feel bigger than they really were. On top of that, the people around him unintentionally made things worse. When Robert tried to help with little tasks, his adult children would say, "No, Dad, sit down. We've got it." They meant well, but every time they gently pushed him aside, they sent the message, "You're not needed here anymore." His sense of purpose shrank even more. The dangerous part? Everyone around him thought this was normal aging. What most people don't realize is that purpose is biological. It's not just an idea. When someone feels their life still matters, their brain releases different chemicals. They're more likely to move, to eat properly, to follow medical advice, to fight through pain. When that purpose disappears, the body quietly shifts into a kind of low-power mode. The immune system weakens. Recovery from illness slows down. The spark to push through one more round of physical therapy, one more week of rehab, one more tough winter, it fades. The good news is that purpose doesn't have to mean going back to work or changing the world. For someone over 81, purpose can be surprisingly simple. Being the person who calls the grandchildren every Sunday, leading a tiny book club, tending 3 plants on the windowsill, feeding the birds each morning, or writing down family stories so they aren't lost. The size of the job doesn't matter. What matters is that, when they wake up, they feel like something or someone is waiting for them. If you have an older loved one, you can often see this in their eyes. When you ask them about tomorrow, do they have an answer that sounds like, "I'm looking forward to"? Or is it more like, "I don't really have anything planned"? That difference, especially after 81, can literally separate the people who quietly fade away from those who keep surprising everyone by hanging on and even thriving. But purpose is just the first piece of the puzzle. Even a strong, motivated 81-year-old can be knocked off course by something that looks tiny from the outside. And that brings us to the second hidden cause that doctors don't always explain clearly. The second hidden cause is the rapid decline after a single health crisis. For someone in their 40s or 50s, a bad fall, a tough flu, or a short hospital stay is usually a temporary setback. They bounce back, go to physical therapy if needed, and life goes on. But after 81, the rules change. The body is already using most of its energy just to keep everything running. There isn't a big reserve tank left for recovery. Imagine an 83-year-old woman named Lena. She's careful. She walks every day, and she mostly manages her own home. One night she wakes up to use the bathroom, feels a little dizzy, and slips. She doesn't break a hip, just a painful bruise and a scare. The doctors check her out, tell her to rest for a few days, and send her home. On paper, this looks like a minor event, but in the weeks after the fall, the real damage begins. Afraid of falling again, Lena stops walking as much. Her leg muscles, already weaker than they were at 60, lose strength quickly. Getting out of a chair becomes harder. Stairs start to feel risky. She spends more time in bed or in her favorite chair and less time moving around the house. Because she's moving less, she loses her appetite. Because she's eating less, she loses weight and even more muscle. Because she's weaker, she needs more help with basic things, which makes her feel embarrassed and frustrated. Anxiety about the next fall creeps into her mind every time she stands up. Within a few months, a woman who once walked to the corner store on her own now needs a walker just to move from the bedroom to the kitchen. If you only looked at Lena's medical records, you'd see a single fall and maybe a note about age-related decline. But what actually happened was a chain reaction. One event triggered fear. The fear changed her behavior. The behavior change weakened her body, and the weakened body increased her risk of the very thing she was afraid of. A similar pattern happens with infections and hospital stays. A short bout of pneumonia, a urinary tract infection, or a few nights in the hospital can leave an 81-year-old suddenly confused, disoriented, or much weaker than before. In the hospital, sleep is broken. Meals are unfamiliar. Medications are added or changed. Some older patients develop temporary confusion that can last for weeks, even after they go home. Friends and family see someone who looks nothing like themselves and assume this is the new normal. What they don't realize is that, right after a health crisis, older adults are standing on a razor-thin edge. With the right support, gentle exercise, good food, patient explanations, and a clear plan, they can often climb back to where they were. Without that support, they slide down and rarely make it back up. This is one of the big reasons so many people who were doing fine at 80 seem to go downhill quickly a year or two later. It's not just the illness itself. It's the combination of lost muscle, lost confidence, disrupted sleep, medication changes, and reduced movement that quietly turns a small problem into a permanent decline. If there's someone in your life over 81, one of the most powerful things you can do is pay attention to what happens in the 6 to 12 weeks after any health event, no matter how small it looks on paper. That's often the turning point. The difference between, remember when grandma bounced back? And she was never quite the same after that. But even if there's no big fall or dramatic illness, many older adults are being worn down by something much quieter, happening mostly behind closed doors. That's the third hidden cause almost nobody warns families about. The third hidden cause is the hidden damage of social isolation. On the surface, loneliness doesn't sound like a medical emergency. It sounds emotional, maybe a little sad, but not like something that would take years off a life. Yet the science says otherwise. Large studies have found that being chronically lonely or socially isolated can increase the risk of early death as much as smoking around 15 cigarettes a day. It raises the risk of heart disease and stroke. It's linked to higher rates of dementia and depression, and it's incredibly common after 80. Think about what happens naturally as someone ages. Their world physically shrinks. They may stop driving. Hearing and vision make noisy restaurants or crowded events exhausting. People they used to see every week, friends from work, neighbors, siblings, start to disappear one by one. Younger family members get busier with jobs, schools, and kids of their own. No one decides, I'm going to become isolated. It just happens. Picture an 84-year-old woman named Maria. For most of her life, she was surrounded by people. Large family gatherings, church on Sundays, neighbors dropping by. But over a few years, her sister dies, her best friend moves into assisted living, and her knees make it painful to climb the church steps. Her children love her, but they live in different cities. They call, they visit when they can, but most days, Maria's house is quiet. At first, she tries to keep her routines. She makes coffee, she turns on the radio, she reads. But as weeks go by, the silence starts to wear her down. She stops cooking full meals just for one person. She stops opening the curtains in the morning. Her sleep becomes irregular, late nights, long naps. She starts to worry more about little things, a weird noise in the house, a bill in the mail, a new ache in her shoulder. With no one to talk these worries through with, they grow bigger in her mind. From the outside, if you only checked her blood pressure and heart rate, you might think she's fine. But inside, her stress hormones are creeping up. Her immune system is weakening. Her brain, hungry for conversation and stimulation, is getting less exercise than ever before. Decisions that used to be easy, like whether to take a walk today, start to feel heavy and complicated. The scary part is that this kind of isolation often goes unnoticed. When you ask, "How are you doing?" many older adults will say, "Oh, I'm fine. I don't want to be a bother." They don't want to sound needy. They don't want their kids to worry. Some even feel ashamed of being lonely, as if it's a personal failure instead of a natural result of losing people and roles over time. Yet a simple change in social connection can sometimes have dramatic effects. When Maria's neighbor finally invited her to a weekly tea group for older women on the block, something subtle changed. Suddenly, she had a reason to get dressed properly once a week. She had stories to listen to, jokes to laugh at, and people who noticed if she didn't show up. Her appetite improved. She started cooking again. Her doctor noticed that her blood pressure, which had been creeping up, started to normalize. It wasn't new medicine. It was connection. If you're watching this and you have someone over 80 in your life, Think about how many truly meaningful human interactions they have in an average week. Not just quick texts or likes on a photo, but real conversations where they feel seen and heard. After 81, those conversations aren't just nice. They're protective. They help keep the brain sharp, the mood steady, and the body willing to keep going. But social isolation isn't the only invisible threat. Many older adults are facing another danger every single day, one that often comes in small plastic bottles with their name printed neatly on the label. The fourth hidden cause is medication overload that nobody has fully explained to them. By the time someone reaches their 80s, it's common for them to be taking 5, 10, or even more prescription drugs every single day. There's a pill for blood pressure, a pill for cholesterol, a pill to thin the blood, a pill for pain, a pill for sleep, a pill for mood, maybe a pill for digestion, and then a few more pills to handle the side effects of all those other pills. Individually, each prescription might make sense. A specialist saw a lab result. A hospital doctor wanted to be safe. A new guideline suggested adding something just in case. But the human body, especially an older body with slower kidneys and liver, can only handle so much chemical traffic at once. Doctors have a name for this: polypharmacy, which simply means taking many medications at the same time. Research has shown that older adults who take 5 or more drugs are at higher risk for confusion, dizziness, falls, and memory problems. Some studies suggest that the more medicines you pile on, the higher the chance of serious side effects, hospitalizations, and even early death. Now imagine an 85-year-old man named Samuel. He's proud that he still lives at home, and he does his best to be a good patient. Over the years, different doctors have prescribed different meds. One for his heart, one for his blood sugar, one to help him sleep when his wife passed, one for nerve pain, one for heartburn, one for his prostate. Every pill came with a short explanation and a promise to help. At first, Samuel managed, but as time went by, he started feeling groggy in the mornings. His balance got worse. He forgot whether he'd already taken his pills, so he sometimes doubled up. His daughter began to notice that his once sharp memory was getting fuzzy. He lost interest in his beloved crossword puzzles. Everyone assumed it was just the beginning of dementia. Finally, a pharmacist did a detailed review of his medications. They found several drugs that weren't necessary anymore, others that were interacting poorly, and a few that were prescribed at doses more appropriate for a middle-aged man than an 85-year-old. Slowly, with careful supervision, Samuel's doctor reduced the list. Over a few months, his thinking became clearer. He laughed more. His energy returned enough for him to start going on short walks again. Nothing magical happened. The fog that was being created by too much medication simply lifted. This is not about blaming doctors. Most are doing their best in a system that encourages treating every number and symptom. But the truth is, it's far easier to add a new prescription than to carefully remove an old one. And for someone over 81, that constant adding can turn the medicine cabinet into a quiet threat. The controversial part? Many families never think to question the list. They assume, if a doctor prescribed it, it must still be necessary. They don't realize that bodies change with age, that medicines that were safe at 65 can be risky at 85, and that different specialists may not always communicate with each other. It's like having 6 people each add a brick to a backpack. No single brick feels like a problem, but the final weight can bring someone to their knees. If you have an older loved one, one of the kindest things you can do is help them gather every pill bottle, prescriptions, vitamins, herbal supplements, just in case pills, and bring them to a doctor or pharmacist for a full review. Ask simple questions. Is this still needed? Could this be making them dizzy or confused? Sometimes, protecting those years between 80 and 90 isn't about adding a new miracle drug. It's about safely letting go of the ones that no longer help. But there's another group of people in this age range who are at special risk: for a reason that almost never makes it into polite conversation. These are the older adults who aren't just managing their own aging, they're also carrying someone else's. The fifth hidden cause is caregiver stress silently wearing down the body. We tend to picture caregivers as middle-aged adults taking care of their parents. But in reality, many caregivers are in their late 70s, 80s, or even 90s, still looking after a spouse, a disabled adult child, or even great-grandchildren. On the outside, people praise them for being so strong and so devoted. On the inside, their bodies are paying a steep price. Studies have found that older spousal caregivers who feel highly stressed by their role have a significantly higher risk of dying themselves compared to people their age who aren't caregivers. Constant worry, broken sleep, physical strain, and the emotional pain of watching someone you love decline all combine into a heavy, invisible burden. Imagine an 83-year-old woman named Helen whose husband, Jack, has advanced Parkinson's disease. Helen wakes up several times a night to help him to the bathroom, reposition him in bed, or check that he's still breathing comfortably. She manages his medications, drives him to appointments, helps him dress, and feeds him on days when his hands shake too much. Friends tell her she's amazing. Nurses say, "We don't know how you do it." Her children urge her to get more help, but she feels guilty at the thought of placing Jack in a facility or hiring a stranger. So she pushes herself harder. Over time, Helen's own health starts to crumble. She skips her own doctor's visits because she doesn't have time. She ignores her back pain from lifting and turning Jack. She lives in a constant state of low-grade panic, always listening for a call from the bedroom. Her blood pressure rises. Her immune system weakens. She catches a chest infection, but delays treatment. By the time she finally collapses from exhaustion and illness, everyone is shocked. "We thought she was doing fine. She never complained." The reality is that the body can only absorb so much stress, especially after 81. The heart, immune system, and brain are already more fragile. Adding 24/7 caregiving on top of that is like making someone run a marathon every single day without rest. Eventually, something gives. One of the quiet tragedies of this stage of life is that the caregiver often dies before the person they were caring for. Families say, "She took such good care of him that she forgot to take care of herself." But this isn't about forgetfulness. It's about a culture that praises self-sacrifice and doesn't make it easy to ask for help. If you know an older caregiver, understand this. Offering help is not just kind, it may be life-saving. Short breaks, shared responsibilities, visiting nurses, adult day programs, or even just sitting with the person they care for so the caregiver can take a real nap can all lower the stress on their heart and mind. And if you are that caregiver, remember this: taking care of yourself is not abandoning the person you love. It's one of the best ways to keep being there for them. All of these hidden causes, loss of purpose, health crises, isolation, medication overload, and caregiver stress, have one thing in common. They all slowly erode something most people don't realize is a real, measurable force inside the body. That brings us to the sixth and final hidden cause: the gradual erosion of resilience. Resilience isn't just a motivational word on a poster. It's a mix of physical strength, emotional flexibility, and mental toughness that lets a person bounce back after setbacks. Earlier in life, resilience gets rebuilt all the time. You lose a job, you find another. You get sick, you recover, you feel even stronger. You move to a new city, you adapt, and build new routines. But after 81, the hits come closer together. The body is slower to heal. Vision, hearing, and balance are all a little less reliable. People you love are more likely to get sick or die. The world itself changes in ways that can feel confusing: technology, money systems, even the language younger people use. Each new challenge doesn't just hurt in the moment. It quietly chips away at the sense that I can handle this. Picture an 86-year-old man named Frank. His wife passed away 5 years ago. He's already adapted to cooking for one, handling the bills, and sleeping in a quiet house. Then, within 2 years, he loses 2 close friends. He develops arthritis in his hands. His driver's license is taken away after he fails a vision test. None of these things kills him, but each one takes a small bite out of his resilience. When he catches a mild case of the flu, he no longer has the same inner voice saying, "Come on, you've bounced back before." Instead, he hears, "I'm tired. What's the point?" He skips his exercises. He stops answering phone calls. The spark that once helped him fight through tough times flickers. From the outside, people may describe this as giving up or just getting old. On the inside, it feels more like a deep exhaustion with constant loss. When resilience finally wears thin, the body often follows. Someone who might have survived a pneumonia at 70 simply doesn't have the same fight left at 88. The will to push through one more hospital stay, one more rehab session, one more painful treatment, it just isn't there. Here's the part nobody tells you. Resilience can be rebuilt, even very late in life. It doesn't happen through lectures or forced positivity. It happens through small experiences of success and support. When an older adult completes a short walk they didn't think they could finish, a tiny bit of resilience returns. When they learn to use a new gadget to video chat with family, they prove to themselves that they can still adapt. When someone takes the time to patiently explain a medical decision and ask for their opinion, they feel respected and in control. When they are invited, not pushed, to join a new hobby group or try a gentle exercise class, they rediscover that their story isn't over. If you think back over all 6 of these hidden causes, a pattern starts to appear. It's not just old age that pulls people down between 80 and 90. It's the combination of lost purpose, unhealed health crises, silent loneliness, too many medications, unrelieved caregiving stress, and worn-down resilience, all stacking on top of each other. No wonder the statistics look so harsh. So what can you actually do with all of this? Let's turn these 6 causes into 6 simple checks you can use in real life. You can think of this as a quiet checklist for protecting the years between 80 and 90. First, check for purpose. Ask, what are you looking forward to this week? If the answer is nothing much, that's not a personality quirk, that's a red flag. Help create tiny missions. Reading to a grandchild over video call, watering a neighbor's plants, being the one who remembers everyone's birthdays, or leading grace at family dinners. The goal is not busyness. The goal is meaning. Second, check recovery after any health event. Don't just celebrate that grandma is home from the hospital. Watch what happens next. Are they moving a little more each day, or a little less? Do they eat, drink, and sleep better as the days pass, or worse? If things are sliding in the wrong direction for more than a week or 2, treat that like an emergency signal. Ask for physical therapy. Ask for clearer instructions. Ask what can be done to rebuild strength instead of just waiting and hoping. Third, check connection. Count how many real human interactions your loved one has in a week. Not just quick, "How are you?" moments, but real conversations. If you realize they have more empty days than connected ones, that's your cue. Bring them into your routine: calls, group chats, game nights, short visits, even shared TV shows with a phone call afterward to talk about it. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to break the pattern of long, silent stretches. Fourth, check the meds. Take one afternoon to line up every pill bottle, including vitamins and over-the-counter stuff. Ask a professional. Given their age now, does this list still make sense? Push gently for plain language answers. You are not being difficult. You're doing quality control on one of the biggest risk factors for people over 80. Fifth, check the caregivers. Look around and ask, who is always helping, but never asking for help? It might be an 82-year-old spouse, an older sister, or a neighbor who just pops over every day. Talk to them about their own sleep, their own appointments, their own fears. Offer practical help in small, specific ways instead of vague. Let me know if you need anything. Most overstretched caregivers will never make that call. They're too busy holding everyone else together. Sixth, check resilience. Listen to the way an older person talks about challenges. Are they still saying, "I'll figure it out"? Or have you started to hear, "It doesn't matter, I'm too old, why bother"? Those phrases are clues that resilience is running low. You can't just argue them away, but you can gently offer small, doable challenges with lots of encouragement. A short walk, a tiny tech lesson, a simple craft, a low-stress outing. Every success, no matter how small, sends the message, you still can. If you're under 80 right now, you're not powerless. In fact, you are in the perfect position to shape what your 80s and 90s look like. You can start building habits and relationships that protect purpose, connection, and resilience long before you need them. Practice asking questions about medications instead of accepting every new prescription without discussion. Build friendships across generations so you're not relying on just one or two people for company later. Find activities that give you a sense of meaning beyond work, because work eventually ends, but meaning doesn't have to. If you already have loved ones in their 80s, listen to them in a new way. When they say, "I don't want to be a burden," hear the fear behind those words. When they say, "I'm fine, I don't need anything," gently look closer. Is their calendar empty? Are they eating real meals? Do they have a reason to be excited about next week? Could their medication list be quietly overwhelming them? Are they still trying to care for someone else without help? And if you yourself are in your 80s or beyond, here's the most important message of all. It is not too late to change your trajectory. You do not have to accept a slow fade out as just the way it is. Asking your doctor to review your medications is not complaining. Telling your family you feel lonely is not weakness. Saying yes to help with caregiving is not selfish. Asking a neighbor to walk with you or sitting in the sun with a friend is not a luxury. These are survival strategies. People love to quote numbers like, "Only this percent make it to 90, as if they were carved in stone. But behind every statistic is a human story. Choices, conversations, small acts of courage or neglect. You may not control everything. Nobody does. But you can absolutely influence how strong your body, mind, and spirit are when life throws its next challenge at you. So the next time you hear someone dismiss the last decade of life as bonus years, remember this. They are real, vivid, meaningful years that can hold laughter, growth, new friendships, and peace if we protect them. If this video opened your eyes to what really happens after 81, don't just click away and forget about it. Take action today. Call an older relative. Help someone schedule a medication review. Invite a neighbor out for a short walk. Or, if this is about you, choose one tiny purpose for tomorrow morning. Something you can look forward to the moment you wake up. Because in the end, the question isn't just, how many years will you live? It's, how much life will you put into the years you have left? And that answer is shaped, day by day, by how we face these 6 hidden causes and what we decide to do about them, starting now.